Canada is cooked. I'm moving to the US, Greece, Portugal, Spain. I see these posts all the time, and maybe you've said this. I think I've said this a lot in the past where right now Canada is facing so many problems on so many levels. Housing is insane, cost of living is through the roof, and it feels like really nothing is improving. So it's natural for people to say these things or start thinking, well, maybe grass is greener somewhere else. But once you actually dig into the reality of other countries and you compare it to Canada, you start to realize that it's not that simple. So first off, one of the main countries people mention is Portugal. It's become this kind of dream spot for digital nomads, for entrepreneurs, people with money, good weather, nice lifestyle, affordable real estate, right? But if you actually look at what's happening there, it's almost the exact same issues we're seeing in Canada. Real estate in Portugal has gone crazy the last 10 years. Cost of living has spiked. Locals are getting squeezed out because wages are low. I think because they also have had a lot of immigration. They literally tried to ban Airbnbs because foreign investors bought up so much housing stock that the average Portuguese family can't afford to live in their own cities anymore. Now, that doesn't really sound like total paradise to me, especially if you were to go move there and expect something different. Now, when you look at the rest of Europe, places like Italy, Greece, the Balkans, Croatia, Serbia, the same story is actually playing out. Some places actually look affordable on paper, but when you factor in the local wages, how much people are earning in those countries, the jobs, taxes, and services, it's not the fantasy that you might expect it to be. I even remember seeing someone say that minimum wage in Portugal is 9 or 10 euros an hour. Imagine trying to cover Toronto level prices with 9 or 10 euros per hour. It's not really possible. And then, of course, the big comparison is the US. Now, I think in a lot of ways, the US, you always think of the US, especially if you're Canadian. I don't know about you guys, but it always seems like there's just more opportunity there. But there's also a lot of other issues that they have, right? It's tricky because the US has 10 major cities, right? Compared to Canada, we only got maybe 3 or 4. We got Toronto, Vancouver, Calgary, maybe Montreal, right? That one's debatable. And if you're in certain industries, moving south of the border could double or even triple your income. So there's no doubt that there's more opportunity there. But then the flip side is you have these other problems. You're paying less in taxes, but you're also on the hook for healthcare. Now, of course, if you have the money to pay for health insurance, this isn't a big deal, right? But let's say you don't and you get unlucky and you get sick, you lose your job. You can get caught up in a lot of these issues, right? I think we do have a good safety net in Canada, even though I don't think it's incredible by any means, but I think we do take it for granted. These things are actually pretty good, right? Not to mention, of course, crime, guns, and all that. Even though we've seen that increase in Toronto and the GTA, I think when you compare that to, let's say, Chicago or different places in different major cities in the US, crime and violence is still much lower. Don't quote me on that. I could be wrong. If someone wants to maybe compare that for me and tell me if crime has gotten worse in Toronto or Canada compared to, let's say, Los Angeles, Miami, Detroit, I'd actually be interested to know. Feels like in certain places in the US, you're more like on edge, right? Now, this is where the conversation usually breaks down because people compare Canada to some imaginary version of another country, not the real one. They think moving to the US will automatically fix their financial problems, when in reality, most of the developed world is facing the same issues we're facing. Now, this was something that kind of hit me because I thought Canada was one of the only countries facing this. But you look at housing shortages, globalization, low interest rates that fueled massive asset bubbles. It's not just Canada. You go to Australia, New Zealand, the UK, and I'll put up a chart right here for you. You can see the exact same charts where, let's say home prices are so far displaced. Now, does that mean Canada doesn't have problems? Of course not, right? Like we mentioned, and like through all my videos, you see how bad it is in Canada right now with our unemployment rate. So frustrated for a reason. If you grew up in a single family home with a backyard that your parents bought on one income, and now you're looking at a $1.2 million starter home and $3,500 rent for a condo, of course you're going to feel like you got robbed. You don't have the same opportunities that your parents or your grandparents had. That's a huge generational pill to swallow that a lot of people just can't get over. And the government messaging that we're getting doesn't really help. It tells you, they'll always try to communicate that things are improving, but it's like in reality, our eyeballs, nothing is improving. You tell me if you think things are improving, but this is my opinion at the end of the day. Most of the time when people say, Canada's, including myself, I've said this a lot. I've said so many times, maybe in the past few years, that I want to leave the country, but I'm like, yeah, if I go, let's say, another country though, will I still have the same problems as Canada? And in a lot of countries, you do face problems, different problems, possibly earning potential, all this stuff. More of we're all pissed off, we're all venting about it, right? And few of us actually go out and do this. I know I've seen a lot of people say they moved to Mexico or Texas or Florida, and maybe they're living great lives. And I'd love to hear some stories. And if you think it's worth the move to do that, you face issues no matter where you go, right? Let's say in Texas, you might save on a house, which is fantastic, but then I believe they have massive property taxes and they have very, very hot summers. Not like that's a massive deal breaker for me personally. I wouldn't care about that. I love the hot weather. Or for example, in Europe, you may love the food and the culture, but then you're earning a fraction of what you could earn in, let's say, the US or Canada. Maybe not Canada because our wages are pretty damn bad, but the truth is no country is perfect, right? We have to remember that. Every place has its trade-offs. So it's not like we should be thinking the grass is always greener. It's where are you willing to accept the problems, and also, being closer to your friends or family to get through these things is also much better. Now, as frustrating as Canada can be right now, we do obviously still have a great country with stability, safety, opportunity in some ways, right? Complaining is easy, right? We all know that. Moving is also very hard. Try to move to the US right now or to another country. It's not an easy process in any means. And building something for yourself, no matter where you are, that is the real challenge. And, let me know what you guys think of this. You think that whole mindset of Canada's cooked, I'm moving, do you think most people actually follow up on that? I don't think they do, right? People are just venting and they're pissed off. So let me know what you guys think of that.